diversity, equity, anti-oppression, decolonization, reparations, the rights to food and nutrition, participatory policy making, community food systems, food system chains, food commons, agroecology, and food sovereignty. And I am based in London, England. I am doing this workshop with my dear friend and fellow Bread Collective member, Gael, who has a long experience in project management, scientific mediation, and research. Her area of expertise is sustainable food systems and CSA. Gael is currently, amongst other things, the president of the French-speaking CSA network and founding member of the Open Food Network Switzerland and the Bread Collective. Gael is based in a village in Switzerland, and together with other friends, we set up a collective, Bread, which stands for Build, Resilience, Equity, Agroecology, and Dignity. The Bread Collective was launched as a think and do collective working for equity in food systems. We are a network of food equity activists and a center for research, projects, and knowledge dissemination to the public, governments, and the United Nations. Our goal is to empower people to transform their food systems. So before we get into the actual work of this, I thought it'd be good to do a bit of grounding. So if people feel comfortable to close their eyes, please do so. And we are going to take some deep breaths. Breathe in and breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in again through your nostrils, your nose. And breathe out through your mouth. One more time. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. And you can open your eyes now. Community-supported agriculture and local solidarity partnerships for agroecology are seen as one of the ways to build equity in our food system. Yet, particularly in the global north, it is white, middle-class people who predominate in benefiting. The most marginalized and most impacted by household food insecurity do not benefit. So how do we change this? We start by asking ourselves some questions that will reveal some uncomfortable truths. The work of justice is not an easy one. So, who holds power in the food system? Do we take into account the complex dynamics and histories of place and people, or the disabling impacts of policy and legislation? How are we as farmers, eaters, activists, researchers, and academics and policymakers holding change? What are our collective responsibilities? Are we innovators and social change agents, or are we just replicating or reinforcing the harm of the existing systems of extraction and oppression. Are current models of CSA and LSPA inclusive and diverse? Is diversity and inclusion enough? Should we be looking towards building participation, anti-oppression, and equity into our models? Do they recognize and uphold the dignity, autonomy, and agency of people within their communities so that they can realize their rights to food and nutrition and ultimately their food and health sovereignty? These are the questions we would like you to hold as we first hear from people who have created socially and economically diverse and inclusive models. Then we will dive a bit deeper and start unpacking these things whilst coming up with ways to be socially and economically inclusive in our own CSAs and LSPAs. And I'll pass you over now to Gael, who will introduce our panelists.
If I don't turn on my mic, you might not hear me. So I don't know if you can read on my lips. So Kama, are you here? Yes, I can not see all the...
Yes, I'm here. I'm trying to remember.
Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Kama was suggested as a speaker by our dear friend and fellow activist Kiana. And I looked on the internet for information about you, Kama. And I found that you had a big dream when you arrived in the US being a farmer. That's a wonderful dream. You now run Sumpul Kafo Farm in upstate New York, and you provide lamb meat and African vegetable to a community of 55 people. Is that right? Yes.
Yes.
Good. And the second project we will have a chance to discover today is called Straight from the Ground, and it's in South Africa. I'm very happy to have Claire with us, as we met by chance on Facebook during the lockdown through a common friend. We were discussing food sovereignty on the Facebook, and she said, you should learn about this project. And we started discussing. With Ariel, took part in the conversation, Kiana too. So we together discussed on the opportunity of creating a CSA system in South Africa. So Claire is going to talk about their values and how it works. So please, Kama, could you start? You have 5 minutes to present your project. Thank you very much.
We want you all. Thank you for having me here today and this morning. My name is Kama Dukure. I'm originally immigrated from Mali, and I came to the United States back in 2005 with a big dream, became either vegetable farm or fruit. Before I be able to start my farm, I did some job called mechanical, driving for Ubers. But our dream was just to start a community farming, and not just start a personal farm, but a community farm. That we have the model in back home. There was a lot of product we, as African, we use in back home, and then we need as we arrive in the United States. We trying to import from Africa to feed ourselves with the same diet we've been growing back home. But with my vision and my dream, I realized to try something that it may grow in here as well. So I started by myself, learning from program to mentorship to apprenticeship. The reason why I do all those things is because the climate, different climate. Africa, we have a different climate from the United States. By doing all those basic research and the apprenticeship, I ended up trying some vegetable in my first year, and they've grown very well in the continent, United States. I see the vision is just to start a community farm, not just a personal farm. And then I call community and tell them, this is what I've been doing, this is what I've been learning, and this is what I have, which is vegetable and different way we process our meat. Basically, we're trying to control the food that we are eating to grow our own food. So we start with 55 members, but it doesn't mean we are supplying just to 55 members. It's hundreds of people are buying our product today as Africans. And we receive a phone call from different states, like Ohio, New Jersey close to us, and Rhode Island, Pennsylvania. But the product we have is not enough even to supply those people in New York as Africans. But with the model that we're doing right now, we trying to create even bigger than what we think and the dream. From 55, we're trying to allocate it to make 100 people to join the farm to be able to supply the community. We can give a little example. We just want to bring to let them eat healthy food that we all know how we grow it and make them healthier and get a desire, whatever they was not getting back in 30 years when they arrive into the state. We're trying to import different projects, including having our kids to learning where the food come from. Because we did experiments into asking them, where did the food come from? They would tell you come from the supermarket. When you ask them where the eggs come from, they tell you supermarket. When you ask them where the milk come from, they tell you supermarket. So we're trying to change those models. We give them opportunity to come to the farm and give them basket, go collect the eggs. Whatever eggs they collected, we let them take it home. We want them to be able to learning how to grow their own food. So far, we having different ideas. Those ideas to help to learning here and then go back home and help farmers, because we see the farmers are struggling back home. Different climate coming, climate change affecting a lot of different things. So our goal is just to help them back home and be able to stay in the farming. As we all know, I may go out the topic a little bit, how the African youth are trying to get rich into Europe. So we're trying to let them know we have opportunity back home where we can farm and grow different variety and different things to make money without moving to different continents. So our project is getting bigger and bigger and bigger with the support of a different organization. But right now, we intended to go beyond our dream, which is our dream was to provide every fresh vegetable from Africa to grow that here and supply to give to the community in the state. But now our vision is to see if we can grow even bigger, help the other youth, other farmers in Africa to start organic farming, not the chemical, because I see they're using a lot of chemical farming right now, which is not healthy for the soil and for the food and for themselves. So we're trying to change those things from here to from the state, or whatever we learn here, to transform to the Africa. So that's what we have. So far, 55 members, and we do a rotation once in a month. Each group go and work once in a month. So we divided by 4 groups, 4 days, every day, 4 members go and work on the farm, and following day, another 4 members go and work on the farm. So we did a rotation. We could keep a job we have, we keep a job, at the same time developing this for the community. So we're selling the product very low price just to support the community, to support ourselves also as well. So this past days, they eat, we'll be able to sell a lot of sheep, $100 different from the other people they get in the farm. So just to make it life easier for them. Yeah, so we are working different projects, and just this is the basic thing that we have so far. We've been working on it. So we have all of the leadership and the president, vice president, secretary. We have different members, different board members, and I'm just daily basis work in the farm. So thank you so much for having us this morning, and we're looking for to learn from the other people the way they're doing their business. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's very interesting. There's so much we can discuss. So we'll discuss later. We'll break into smaller rooms so we really have a space to discuss. I will now give the floor to Claire so she can present the project.
Hi, so my name is Claire Roussel and I am speaking from Johannesburg in South Africa. And I am part of a team called Straight from the Ground. And we have a garden in Johannesburg. And from that garden, we run a vegetable box scheme. And we grow some of the produce on the garden that we operate on, and then we buy a lot of produce from small-scale farmers in and around Johannesburg. The idea of community-supported agriculture is very unfamiliar in Johannesburg. I think that there are some things that look like CSAs in other parts of the country, but it's not a well-known concept. And so I feel like even though we've been doing this for a year and a half, that we are still aspiring to a lot of the ideals of CSA, and certainly a lot of the ideals of more diverse ways of doing a vegetable box scheme. But I think one of the things that we've learned is that is to trust the long arc of that work. We live in one of the most unequal societies in the world. And what you say about community-supported agriculture or these kind of small networks of farmers and consumers being predominantly middle class and in South Africa predominantly white is true. And I think we have to just trust that long process, that we know that we're committed to that change, but that it's not an immediate change. It's not something that, so we've been doing things in small ways, but also using the wealth of, so we're situated in quite a wealthy neighborhood, and which was just, it was the circumstances, and sort of using that as a resource to stabilize the organization, while we try to make the work that we do far more participatory, engaged, accessible, and making sure that that the best food that we know, I mean, we're growing, and from the farmers that we work with, they are growing some of the best vegetables I see anywhere, and making sure that each week, at least some of that, even if it's through a donation or food relief projects, is going to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. But that in the longer term, we want that to be a more direct relationship between lower income communities and small scale farmers that can use the trust that we've developed over the time that we've been working with small scale farmers. In our network, we can leverage that trust for these more diverse, broad, widespread, accessible ways of doing, in our case, a vegetable box scheme. We also have a weekly newsletter that we put out to a network of about 400 people, and then we also put it out on social media, and often we are able to use that as a medium for awareness raising. A lot of the people who will see that newsletter are quite well off, particularly the people who are living in that neighborhood. And perhaps through learning about food sovereignty, learning about what's happening at various points in the kind of quite, we're in some cases, in some ways, South Africa is in a state of chaos and disaster, and kind of drawing attention to each of those issues as they affect people's access to food, and putting that out on the newsletter as well, because perhaps that has a way of shifting some mindsets, and leveraging some resources in the direction of lower income communities. And we have seen that happen in a lot of instances, even in a small way. And then we also have a shop which runs, so we're predominantly volunteer run. We managed to earn like a tiny little stipend here and there, but for the most part, we're certainly not earning any kind of salary, although we are putting, for some of us, this is our main work. And we have a once a week shop, which we don't manage to open more often than that because it's we don't have the capacity. But that shop, we see it's also in its infancy, but we see it becoming a platform for micro producers, also often from lower income communities who are producing beautiful things, and that the shop can be a showcase in this quite wealthy neighborhood that we are operating in. And you know, and I don't know where that leads, but hopefully that leads to those products being seen by a wider group of people. And even at I think the base of everything that we do is this ethic of commitment and solidarity. So trying to do things as consistently as possible and rooted in not necessarily the convenience of this rich neighborhood that we live in, that the farm is in, but trying to instill a sense of solidarity and commitment. Like, sorry, you don't get to choose what vegetables are in your box. We choose what goes in your box because we can see what's on various farms, and we can make sure that that those vegetables are being mopped up on those various farms. And we also encourage people to subscribe so that we are able to commit to farmers in a consistent and relatively reliable, committed way. And that commitment and consistency from our customers and from us to the farmers allows us to build trust and do lots of things that I feel we're doing okay, that have some impact beyond just selling vegetables to rich people.
Could you say a word about your work on indigenous vegetables? I think you've worked on a booklet or a book also.
Yes, so separate to Straight from the Ground. I'm also part of a collective with Brittany Kesselman and Andrew Benny, who I can see is down there in the attendance of this meeting. And Brittany and myself and a lot of other Indigenous knowledge holders have come together and made these beautiful little books, which, if you give me a second, I'll just grab one. Sorry, I didn't realize we were going to ask about that. Or I would have been prepared. So these books, in English, they are called Indigenous Plants for Resilient Futures. And they're translated into isiZulu and Setswana, and soon Tshivenda, another South African language. And they are the product of a couple of workshops and an online talk by incredible practitioners who are farmers and who are chefs and who are seed and land activists, And so this book brings together extracts from each of those workshops, some recipes from what was eaten at those workshops, some quotes from the talk that happened online, and yeah, and a little bit of background to how the book came about, and that is supported in part by the Goethe Institute's Sustainable Together program.
You could maybe put a link to the book if people are interested. That would be nice.
I will.
Oh, maybe. Oh, it's already okay. I think you're already something.
Really?
So it's going fast. That's new technology. So Natalie, Claire, if you're done, I'll take the lead now, and you can discuss with people later in the smaller room. So Natalie, could you open my PowerPoint, please?
Just a second.
Don't worry.
Sorry, I can't see my controls. Sorry if that's a bit like they disappeared actually. So I'm just trying to open it up.
Yeah, I don't know how to help you out.
No, I can't just see it.
I guess that's why Jocelyn has two computers or two screens.
Probably, yeah. Wait, let me move it. Then I can probably open it better. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so you can move to the second one. So I'm going to talk a little bit, bring some ideas maybe for the discussion later about some of the barriers that we identified in the accessibility of good food for all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the price barrier and another one that is we call the cultural and knowledge barrier. So Natalie, you can jump to the second one. Okay. So a first comment, I would say that in the CSA model, there is little room for adaptation of the price to the financial capacity of the member. We cannot really change the price as there's very little margin on food. I mean, the food industry, the margin on food is very low. Even in the huge supermarket, the margin on food is very low. It's very hard to say, okay, you pay a lower price for the food. And also, if we want to pay a good price to the farmer, we cannot. Sorry, I see myself. Just a second, so I don't see myself. I can see only the screen. Yeah. So if we want to pay a good price to the farmer, we cannot really lower the price of the share to the convenience of the consumer, because we want to make sure that the farmer gets a good price for their products. And also, we feel a lot of pressure of consumers and other people comparing the price of the shares or the products they get in the basket compared to the prices in the supermarket, even though the quality can be very different. Natalie, you can change. Natalie? Yeah, thank you. So, what are some examples of good practices on this issue of the price? As I said before, the price paid to the farmer cannot be lowered. The cost to the final consumer could be shared with other people. An example would be that in some project, the price of the share is shared with other members of the community. The example of cocaine, it's a Geneva, a CSA. You pay your share according to your financial capacity. So if you're a lawyer and you earn more money, you pay your share a higher price than people that don't have much money. And even if you have less money than that, you can pay less and do more voluntary work for the value of your share. So that's a system. Another idea is in Germany. They have some bidding round system where they put in common the capacity on. They have a meeting once a year and they say that's the money we need for next year for the salary of the farmers, for covering the costs of farming. That's the money we need. Please write on a little piece of paper how much you could pay your share and put it in an envelope. And after a while, they open the envelope and see if the amount is covered by the money that people can put in it. So each person pay according to what they can really pay. So that's a way of sharing the costs and including more people in the system. Not only people with a high income, but also other people can be involved. Another way of doing things is sharing the costs with a non-profit organization. That can be, for example, in France, in a CSA in France, what they do is people pay their share to a non-profit organization, and the non-profit organization crowdfund or look for other ways or other possibilities of funding the shares. So the consumers pay a part and the rest is crowdfunded or held by philanthropists or other systems. So the farmer get the money, but the people pay according to what they can pay. Another way of doing this would be saying that people pay their shares and the local institution pay an extra bit. An example would be now with the COVID situation, some cities want to support local farmers or local projects by paying a part of it. So people pay the shares with the tickets, the coupon systems, and they pay them 20% less than the normal price. And the city pays the difference, or even a bit more to help the farmers and local producers. Natalie, if you want to. So that were my first ideas on the price issue, and then I put my mind into the accessibility issue. So one problem I see is that many projects are started by activists. They then contact their friends, their fellow activists, their family to start the project. But it remains in a bubble of very active people. So we need to burst the bubble and get out of just the activists and touch more people. People that are less conscious about the issues of the food system and people that are not putting so much energy in changing the food system yet. So we really need to have a way of communicating not only with activists, but more people. And also, on the question of accessibility, we noticed that there are many people that are under the radar. We have no idea what they eat or where they get their food from. I think there are whole parallel food systems that we barely know about. There are some people we don't know. We don't know what they eat. We don't know where they're from. And I guess some people have also don't have a permit to stay in the country, and they don't get access to the coupons and systems that are organized by the state, and we don't really know what they eat or where it comes from. And also another point on the question of accessibility would be a feedback I got is that it might be very hard for marginalized people to make long-term commitment as the CSA model demands. So how can you ask people to sign for a year if they have no idea if they'll get a salary the next month? Natalie, you can go to the next one. So I was wondering what was done on these issues, and one big example would be in France. They have a huge network with thousands of farmers and a lot of staff members. So what they started doing was organizing web encounters that 300 people attended, and they started working with activists, researchers, lots of people to come together and bring back the attention to accessibility of good food. So they really wanted to put people together and discuss these issues. It's still work in progress. We don't have the report yet, but if we have more information, I'll gladly share it with you. Or we find a way through urgency to share the result of all this work that has been done. At our level, our collective, with Dee and other friends, we are starting a project we call Nourrir la Diversité, Feeding the Diversity, Alimentando la Diversidad. So our idea is to change the narrative about food and go and interview people in their own language and discuss with them about food. And in the first part of the project, we want to create a live library of experiences and narratives about food. And the second step would be going back to the neighborhoods and with them help them get the capacity to participate in the discussion on food in their local instances or with the city. So we are in advanced steps with making some. Okay. Sorry, I was reading what Dee wrote. We are making contacts to start this project. The city of Geneva is very interested by it, so we're starting this project. We already created a non-profit organization. And we already have the website, so if you're interested in this project, please get in touch. We will gladly talk about it. Another project I'm working on is called Open Food Network. So it's an open food. Sorry, I'm seeing the discussion. I don't know if I can turn it off. So Open Food Network is an open source platform to support the access to online selling to agroecological farmers. So our idea is to help farmers sell their produce online, give them a good tool that is very low in cost, but very efficient. We also want to create a part of this project that would be especially focusing on specialty, and if marginalized people have their own little business in the food business, we would like to help them get access to our platform and sell their produce. So we are very advanced on this project. We already got some funding, so it's moving faster. And if people are interested, we'd gladly share information and help you out set up your own instance in your own region. Natalie, the last slide. Okay, so that's just the website for the Bread Collective. Kama, I didn't see your website or email address, but if you agree to share it, maybe you could add it to the chat. And
sure, I can.
Thank you. So sorry, I was trying to read the slides while seeing things popping up, but I guess that's the thing. So now we're going to split into different rooms to have a good space for discussion. So we were thinking that the language would make, we could split in different languages, so that one would be English speaking. Can a Portuguese speaking person be helping us by facilitating the room? Would it be, yes, Ariel? Wonderful. So we would like to discuss this, as we talked a lot, but now we want you to have the possibility to discuss and give feedbacks or tell us about what's going on in your own situation. So we were thinking that some question that could be answered would be, what are the barriers for your CSA in terms of supporting marginalized people? So what are the barriers you identify? What can be done? And what kind of support would you need from the network or from other people in improving the accessibility of good food to more people? And we'll discuss, oh, we're not late, wow. Dee, what do you think? Half an hour would do? Dee, I don't see you.
Half an hour would be good.
Okay, so we can take half an hour to discuss, and then we come back to the main room and discuss together.
Gael, can you just let me know how many rooms do you want to have?
So we can. So we are 20. What do
Well,
you think? 3 would be nice, no?
I'm not sure if there, because there's also the interpreters that you see here in the.
Yeah. So I'm not so used to it. So can you see the list of people who speaks English, Portuguese, or Spanish?
Yeah, I just don't know if everybody has put their language already.
Oh,
Maybe didn't hear the first announcement, so maybe it was just explain that again.
So we could have a room where the discussion would be in English. We can have a room in Portuguese, so people could discuss in Portuguese and just giving us the feedback in English at the end. So that's the idea. And if there are several Spanish-speaking people, it would be nice to have a room for them. So if any Spanish-speaking person could facilitate the discussion. So because I saw. Okay, so the report back can also be in Portuguese, Ariel, if you want. So is there anybody speaking Spanish?
I think your idea was that you put your ES, EN, or PT in front of your name so we can see it.
Yeah. So I don't know if there is Spanish-speaking people here. There was at the beginning, but I don't see anymore. So, okay, so maybe. So, what do you think, Dee? Shall we split in 2 rooms?
I think so.
Okay, so I will create a room then for the everybody who has EN in front of the name, and assign you to it, and then the rest will stay in the main room then here where there are also interpretation channels. Is that okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect.
So we'll be back in half an hour. That makes it, yeah, in half an hour. We have different times. So, yeah. And we'll put it all together to have a feedback and see how we can move from there to what future steps should be taken. And Claire has a little surprise for you at the very end. So see you in half an hour. Thank you, Natalie.
Takes me just a second here to get.
Yeah, go ahead. So we have a Spanish-speaking person in the. That would. Have you seen in the chat, Natalie? So Elizabeth Hernandez is speaking Spanish, but I guess you can listen to. Okay, in English, or somebody can translate in Spanish for her.
Okay, you should have a link now to the English room, and for the others, it will be here in the main room, and we have also the Spanish interpretation here.
Aqui estamos os brasileiros. Natalie, here we have just the Brazilians, yeah?
Okay. So we need another room, sorry.
No, I'm just asking you. We're just staying in this room. The Brazilians should stay in this room?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because we have a bit of a mix, I think, here. So just to make sure if somebody needs interpretation, it is here as well.
Okay, I think Kama is with us as well.
I can add him to the English room.
Caio, vejo então Bruno, está aqui com a gente. A Ximena também. Temos o Leandro. E temos a Márcia, que está com a gente. Olha só, a Márcia super espectador aqui, não vai deixar nem ir pro ar. Temos a Anne também, lá da CSA Manaus, aqui da CSA Manaus, né? Deixa eu ver se eu esqueci de alguém. E temos a Elizabeth também conosco, que acho que deve estar ouvindo o canal em espanhol. Perfeito, somos 6 aqui. Vocês todos estão me ouvindo? A proposta dessa sala agora é da gente conversar um pouco sobre o que foi apresentado agora pela HL, pela Di, sobre essa temática, né, de diversidade, né, na CSA, tanto ligado à questão de diversidade no prato, mas também de ampliar esse acesso para mais pessoas, né? Acho que o Bruno, não sei se estava mais por perto aí do CSA para todos, junto com a Cláudia, com a Ju, com a Gabi também, não? Por favor, podem abrir seus microfones, vamos conversar um pouquinho, temos meia hora.
Eu posso falar?
Pode, por favor.
Então, diante até do que a Gaeli falou, esqueci o nome da outra moça, acho que é Dry, né? Dry, acho que é o nome dela.
Dia, pode chamar ela de Dia, mais fácil.
Dia. Assim, eu sinto, de alguma maneira, que isso é um desafio muito grande para nós, de maneira geral, porque meio que a Cláudia até trouxe isso para nós, aqui em São Paulo, eu, Juliana, Gabriela, e foi um pouco difícil assim, a gente conseguir encampar isso. Acho que os modelos que eles apresentaram não fugiu muito daquilo que a gente até imaginou aqui em São Paulo, então a gente meio que tentou no passado uma parceria com o SESC, mas acabou não dando muito certo. E mesmo outras CSAs que, enfim, ainda estão tentando lutar em alguma medida para se tornar uma CSA de fato e não um grupo de consumo ou alguma outra forma de coletivo, mesmo as pessoas do grupo acabam trazendo essa demanda de que o grupo seja mais inclusivo, né? Então, por exemplo, aqui em São Paulo, ali perto, para quem não conhece, né? Mas aqui na zona sul de São Paulo tem uma represa, uma região da represa que é uma região mais periférica, e ali na represa de Guarapiranga tem um produtor lá que é que enfim, toca uma CSA lá da Horizonte Azul, enfim, que também até nasceu antes da Comida da Terra aqui em São Paulo, que é uma outra CSA que tem aqui, que está mais consolidada, mais amadurecida, mas é uma demanda dos próprios habitantes ali da região, porque muitos pegam dessa região periférica. Só que eu sinto que, e até assim, como desabafo que eu coloco, que eu acho que pelo menos pela fala delas haveria esse espaço, e também para pensar alternativas, né? Acho que eu já tinham me contado desses modelos, né? Desses modelos que elas apresentaram, principalmente de parceria mesmo com instituições, ou mesmo as pessoas partilhando para poder pagar ou para poder redistribuir valores, mas eu acho que é um trabalho que é muito a longo prazo mesmo, assim, sabe? Eu me convenci muito disso, que a gente não vai fazer milagre nenhum, né? Acho que também eu mesmo, nesses 2, 3 anos que eu estou envolvido um pouco com isso, eu entendi que quantidade não é qualidade. Estou pensando assim, é um apoio muito a longo prazo que a gente oferta para quem produz alimentos. Então, nesse sentido, também é uma transformação a longo prazo de nós mesmos para nos tornar não mais consumidores, mas apoiadores de fato, né? Então, eu acho que, assim, enquanto modelos práticos, o que eu sinto mesmo aqui em São Paulo, mas acho que também no Brasil é possível, acho que a Cláudia ou a Gabriela tinham mencionado para mim uma instituição que eu não vou lembrar o nome, talvez você conheça, Ariel, que ela não é nenhuma instituição muito conhecida da sociedade civil, mas que ela meio que consegue também financiar ela consegue financiar projetos que a própria CSA abraça, que faz com que pessoas que seriam periféricas e não conseguiriam ter esse acesso fariam. Então, acho que parcerias com instituições aqui no Brasil mesmo acaba sendo, essas instituições maiores, como o SESC, ou mesmo outras instituições, eu estou esquecendo o nome dessa, que consegue dar essa acessibilidade. Assim, o máximo que a gente conseguiu na CSA Comida da Terra olha, a gente está entendendo que a gente precisa expandir o nosso público, as pessoas que a gente está querendo proporcionar alimento de qualidade, né? E assim, o máximo que a gente conseguiu foi a Joana e o Thiago conseguiram se organizar na produção para fazer doação de alimentos. Né? Não é o ideal, porque de fato essas pessoas não são coagricultores e essa é uma doação esporádica, mas a gente pelo menos tentou fazer alguma coisa que fugisse um pouco do enquadramento básico de ter alguém financiando e apoiando a longo prazo, mas que pelo menos fosse acessível para pessoas numa situação muito limite, assim, eram moradores de rua, assim mesmo, né? Aqui tem uma ocupação famosa, para quem não é de São Paulo, também, que chama Ocupação 9 de Julho. É uma organização assim, muito maravilhosa, que consegue funcionar de uma maneira muito horizontal. E eles têm uma cozinha lá. E cada vez mais eles têm recebido produtos de pequenas produtoras, para fazer essa cozinha rodar, e eles conseguiram. Então, assim, só para não me alongar muito, estou de olho aqui no relógio também por causa da minha hora, mas acho que assim, o que eu consegui encontrar de fato de alternativa, e aqui eu estou colocando isso não para falar da minha experiência, mas até para partilhar, para ver se vocês teriam também uma devolutiva de experiências que eu não consegui agregar aqui, que é parcerias com instituições, esses modelos de doação de alimentos mesmo, mas também ainda é um desafio para nós aqui conseguir quebrar essa barreira, né? E, assim, mesmo a Gabriela, pelo menos, que foi a pessoa que praticamente me iniciou aqui em São Paulo na CSA, ela pontuava muito isso, assim, quando havia essas demandas dessa CSA aqui na Zona Sul, que é numa região periférica mesmo, sobre a vontade de um ou outro em, olha, a gente precisa expandir para todo mundo ter acesso. E as coisas não funcionam assim, né? Assim, é muito a longo prazo, isso tem que ser muito planejado. E ela falou assim, olha, Bruno, de fato, isso aqui que eles querem, pelo menos um deles queria, né? Não vai conseguir se realizar na prática. A gente precisa conscientizar as pessoas de uma maneira muito madura. Então, acho que também, se a gente quer, de fato, expandir para que a gente consiga englobar o maior número de pessoas, especialmente pessoas que não conseguiriam ter esse acesso, acho que também se conscientizar que isso é uma transformação a longo prazo, sabe? Então, eu falo para vocês assim com muita honestidade aqui. Para mim, eu tenho amizades que moram em regiões periféricas e mesmo para eles, né? Eu sempre me coloquei nessa situação de porque para essas pessoas o que eu tento me engajar é tão estranho, porque muitas vezes é aquele dinheiro que ela tem, né? Então, eu acho que é um pouco a gente pensar que se a gente está apoiando uma comunidade e a gente faz parte dessa comunidade, talvez o nosso apoio tenha que ser mais integral ainda. Nesse sentido, acho que até, se não me engano, acho que eu vi uma fala sua, Ariel, que eu procurei no site da UGENS, numa reunião antiga, que teve um debate mais ou menos sobre esse mesmo tema que a gente está tratando aqui, que era sobre como incluir pessoas que não conseguiriam manter a CSA a longo prazo, né? Essa coisa que é um mercado de trabalho instável nas grandes cidades, né? Isso aí é uma lei que cada vez mais está imperando no nosso mundo, mas que às vezes também a pessoa entender que, olha, ela pode pagar uma cota para alguém para que a pessoa possa participar de fato, né? Mas eu vejo também que esse exemplo da Alemanha, que eu já tinha ouvido falar, pode ser também uma inspiração para que as pessoas entendam que, olha, se você pode pagar mais para esse organismo agrícola funcionar, você tem que também entender que isso tem que ser distribuído. Então, nos momentos na pandemia que alguém perdeu o emprego, a gente renegociou, a gente conseguiu criar fundos de investimento e esse outro fundo que seria fundo de emergência. Tipo, alguém saiu no meio do ciclo, alguém perdeu o emprego, a gente consegue manter aquela pessoa, pelo menos uma pessoa a gente consegue manter. Então, acho que também vai em função da gente pensar mecanismos de planejamento financeiro, para que as pessoas, de fato, que não se incluídas, serão incluídas. Desculpa, me alonguei aqui, mas era isso.
Não, cara, perfeito. Eu fiz as anotações aqui. Eu acho que esse feedback aí de você, né, de São Paulo e capital, é super legal, porque o movimento tem ampliado. Eu tenho sempre recebido mensagens do pessoal onde tem CSA em São Paulo. Assim, eu mesmo não consegui ainda entender onde estão os depósitos, quem que é o pessoal de Atibaia que entrega lá. Então, acho que assim, tá crescendo muito forte, né? Tá indo muito forte. E eu acho que, né, eu notei essa questão das doações esporádicas, a questão da cozinha comunitária, que já tem um trabalho forte, já existe essa comunicação, essa rede formada, e eu acho que é importante que você falou de planejar muito bem antes de colocar em prática para não perder tempo ou gastar energia com coisa errada. Então, acho que, assim, os parceiros certos, né, a gente já tem, vão sempre somando, né, então não é uma questão de prospectar a gente ou ajuda, né, mas é a questão de ter bem planejado o que a gente pode fazer. E agora que eu acho que é interessante que você traz aí, da gente aprender com o bidding round, né, que é essa chamada lá da Alemanha, lá de a gente passar o chapéu, né, então a gente tem um orçamento da unidade agrícola, né, e aí a gente pode ver em cima disso aí como a gente pode trabalhar e também na hora de colocar o valor, né, sugerido em cima de um número de coagricultores específicos, a gente já colocar que aquele valor está sendo calculado para quê, por exemplo, né? Entrar aí até um pouco no que é da economia de comunhão. Então, assim, a cada 10 cotas que a gente tem com aquele valor, a gente consegue, né, pagar uma cota, contribuir com uma cota para uma família que não pode entrar, né? Já tem naquele valor ali, né? E aí a gente sabe, se a gente tem 50 coagricultores, né, a gente sabe que 5 famílias estão recebendo efetivamente, né, não esporádico, mas direto isso, né, e isso não vai fugir da lógica do bidding round, porque ele já vai estar calculado, ó, o valor tem que ser de 200, seria o ideal, a contribuição de cada cota para a gente atingir esse nível, né, já contando que dentro de, né, 10% desse valor está indo para poder ter esses alimentos ofertados para pessoas que não podem, né, garantindo o direito da alimentação. Acho que isso é fantástico, assim, então anotei esses pontos todos. E aí estou aqui vendo, a gente tem a Anne também, Anne, se quiser falar alguma coisa, Ximeno também lá de Brasília, ó, São Paulo, Brasília, Manaus, e a Márcia lá também no Reino Unido, está aqui super acompanhando a gente. Márcia, Colin Nadir, que ela é fantástica e ela está na Inglaterra, então acho que dá para acompanhar o trabalho dela aí, ela é super cheia de contatos, acho que rapidinho vocês já se entrosam aí. Pode falar, Ana, a gente está ouvindo. Anne, está ouvindo? A gente não te escuta, seu microfone está aberto já, mas a gente não está te escutando. Acho que, Ximena, se puder, quiser dar suas contribuições aí, sua visão de como está em Brasília também, eu acho que é fantástico o que acontece lá, né? Eu espero que a CSA de Brasília tenha ficado interessada nos produtos da Raquel, né? Lá do Tapajós, na segunda-feira. Então, mais um lugar para trazer produtos da Amazônia, né? Acho que essa é uma diversidade muito grande que vai além da CSA, que são essas compras coletivas, né? Apoiadas pela comunidade. E entre outras ações todas aí, que acho que, né, são várias aí, que estiveram bastante forte junto da pandemia, acho que antes da pandemia também já tinham várias ações assim, de solidariedade.
Então, boa tarde. Antes da pandemia, nós conseguíamos, como CSA, Vindu, dar 2 cestas semanais para 2 famílias, não, 1 cesta semanal para 2 famílias, para elas conseguir participar da CSA sem contribuir financeiramente, e só ouvir nos multirões aqui na chácara. Depois, com a pandemia, a gente teve um pedido de uma comunidade bem carente, e a gente começou a entregar todos os excedentes da nossa chácara 1 vez por semana em uma comunidade. Então, porque aqui a CSA Vindu não vende, só tem CSA. Então, como a vezes muita comida para nós tirávamos todo o que estava disponível e 1 vez por semana íamos na caminhoneta deixar nessa comunidade no mesmo dia que a gente fazia a entrega. Então, essa era uma forma. E agora estamos trabalhando com um templo budista, que ele está fazendo marmitas para moradores de rua, e 1 vez por semana também todo o que é colhido e que vai além de lo que nossos agricultores comem é entregue para eles. E é isso, é um sonho, né? Conseguir a gente aumentar nossa cota, a contribuição financeira de quem pode pagar, para incluir já dentro da planilha pessoas que gostariam de receber semanalmente e que não teriam como pagar. Mas a condição financeira aqui no Brasil está bem difícil, né? Não sei se todo mundo sabe, mas aqui a inflação está muito alta, as coisas em 1 ano triplicaram de valor, o óleo de comer, o óleo de girassol passou de R$6 a R$16. E aí isso com todos os insumos. Então, aqui estamos passando por uma situação sumamente difícil de muitas pessoas voltando para a linha da pobreza e incluso da miséria. A gente em Brasília vê muito morador de rua. Então, tem muitas pessoas que deixaram de ter casa porque não conseguem pagar os aluguéis. Então, a gente decidiu agora focar mais nesse povo. Ver que organismos estão fazendo entrega dessas marmitas solidárias e a gente passar toda a nossa produção para eles. De fato, a gente fez um esforço por plantar o dobro do que estávamos plantando, que já estava sobrando comida, para conseguir doar mais. Isso é o que está acontecendo aqui.
Obrigado. Eu acho que daqui né, de Manaus também tem várias iniciativas aí que estavam acontecendo, né, muito por conta da pandemia também, e muitas ações, né, o pessoal também, né, lá de Iranduba ali, né, tem também uma comunidade ali perto, tem algumas famílias que eles acabam levando os excedentes também, né, da CSA, mas eu acho que, né, tem muito para ser feito, assim, e a gente fica, né, pensando assim, como estruturar a CSA, a gente organizar a CSA, mas saber lidar com isso como um todo, assim, para que não sejam, né, igual o Bruno colocou, não sejam doações esporádicas, assim, que a gente consiga trazer para esse campo da solidariedade, isso que é o diferencial da CSA, né, frente a qualquer outra coisa. O diferencial da CSA é compromisso, né, e se a gente, do mesmo jeito que a gente fala de assumir compromisso junto com os agricultores e os consumidores, né, a gente também, na hora que abarcar isso e pensar, pô, tem excedente, né, temos aí vagas, como que a gente pode pensar numa maneira do agricultor não ficar na mão com o orçamento e a gente saber trabalhar com esses excedentes assim para que realmente não seja uma doação, mas que seja uma coisa direcionada ali, né? E o nome deles também está ali na cesta de alimentos, na cota de alimentos toda semana, igual está o nome de cada coagricultor que faz parte. Então, acho que e é na transparência que eu acho que é importante a gente saber como transformar isso na hora de explicar para as pessoas, né? Talvez esse seja o nosso momento agora, né, de missão e do amadurecimento do movimento CSA aqui no país, de saber como levar isso de maneira para as pessoas. Olha, né, o valor sugerido é esse, o valor ideal é esse. Se você contribuir com isso, né, por mês, é assim que funciona, né? Mas ao mesmo tempo também não queremos deixar ninguém de fora, né? E tentar achar saídas criativas assim para a gente, né, ter o direito da alimentação e ao mesmo tempo assim saber que esses fluxos financeiros, econômicos aí são super importantes para sustentar a unidade agrícola, porque sustentando a unidade agrícola a gente consegue manter nossa alimentação e manter a alimentação de outras pessoas também. Super.
Ariel, só uma coisa, aqui a gente conseguiu fazer outro tipo de trocas, que é troca de serviço. Então, a gente tem duas pessoas, que é uma psicóloga, que não consegue pagar a cesta, mas ela oferece terapia para duas agricultoras aqui da CSA, 2 vezes a cada 15 dias, né? E tem uma pessoa que trabalha com massagem, um massoterapeuta, que também ele não consegue pagar e dá massagem, uma massagem por semana para cada um dos nossos agricultores. Aí a gente está tentando ver isso, e a gente agradece muito essas massagens e esse outro tipo de trocas.
Pode falar, Bruno, bora lá.
Muito boa essa da massagem, porque de fato, às vezes, tem uma senhora que eu conheço aqui na Zona Leste, eu falo, nossa, ela faz umas posições, às vezes, que eu falo, coitada da coluna dela, porque, meu, só 50 anos, eles, às vezes, só para ficar puxando para baixo, cima para baixo, só um comentário. Mas acho que, assim, uma coisa que, às vezes, eu sinto falta, né? Que eu nem sei se isso, de fato, tá no próprio site da Urgence ou não, mas que talvez isso passe a ser, não sei, assim, é só uma sugestão boba, mas isso seja uma política de fato da CSA Brasil, ou se não, da própria Urgence, que haja uma aba com sugestões e orientações do como fazer. Né? Não sei se isso existe no site, eu nunca encontrei no site da CSA Brasil, mas que isso não só se torne um elemento de conversa, de debate nos simpósios, mas também que a gente pense em metodologias práticas mesmo disso, assim, tipo, não sei, às vezes tem vindo para mim muito que o grande amadurecimento que eu observei assim, é amadurecimento financeiro, né? Não que a gente só pense no preço, muito pelo contrário, mas esse amadurecimento financeiro eu penso mais assim, em aproximar de uma maneira muito orgânica da parte de quem apoia, de como o organismo agrícola funciona, né? Então, assim, quando eu faço, por exemplo, as entrevistas que eu faço com quem tem que ser, né? Com as pessoas que possam ter interesse na CSA, eu tento deixar muito claro esse racha quase cognitivo que as pessoas não entendem que é compromisso. Que para a pessoa, às vezes, mesmo quem tem condições financeiras, é quase não, a pessoa não entende, né? Para vocês terem uma noção, uma vez eu tentei convencer uma colega minha de curso, ela achou que era esquema de pirâmide, olha o nível da coisa. Então, assim, é uma coisa tão radical que a pessoa não entende, ela não sabe processar na primeira hora, nesse nível de investimento. Então, acho que, assim, talvez propor, em alguma medida, talvez um material orientativo que possa estar no site, ou mesmo no site da CSA Brasil, com opções, aquelas opções ali que elas nos deram no slide. De fato, a situação no Brasil está complicada, mas ela também não é impossível, mas pelo menos para surtir efeito na ideia das pessoas, em que elas consigam fazer essa parceria, né? Assim, até para partilhar aqui, para finalizar essa minha fala, mas acho que o único projeto que eu conheci, que tem aqui em São Paulo, que tenta um pouco fazer isso, não é CSA, é grupo de consumo, mas que tenta fazer um pouco isso, chama um projeto de, se vocês quiserem depois procurar no Instagram, chama de Ponta a Ponta, que eles meio que tentam fazer isso, atender tanto famílias em situação de vulnerabilidade, quanto agricultores em situação de vulnerabilidade. Só que, assim, a diferença é que, de fato, eles trabalham com captação de recursos. Então, acho que, assim, no limite, acho que a gente está falando aqui de captação de recursos e como partilhar bônus e ônus. Só que eu acho que talvez começar a tornar isso que a gente tem falado aqui agora procedimental, sabe? Então, ter uma aba no site com diretivas de como fazer para com que mais pessoas que não tenham condição de ter acesso tenham. Então, uma cartilha ou mesmo um botão que seja, para que aquilo esteja e as pessoas comecem a pensar elas mesmas também, além das alternativas que estão ali apresentadas, para formalizar mesmo, né?
Nossa, não, eu acho fantástico isso, né? Super demais também que a Ximena está aqui com a gente para, né, acompanhar todo esse processo aí de remodelagem do site, né, dessa nova fase da CSA Brasil. E eu acho que é legal trazer o exemplo da CSA de Portugal, né, das AMAPs, e ver o cuidado que eles tiveram para poder fazer um material de divulgação, né? Pensando em semiótica, em lógica e tudo mais, as imagens, a forma de comunicação, ou seja, cada vírgula foi cuidadosamente pensada, né? E eu acho que é isso, né? Eu que anotei um pouco disso que você falou, né? Acho que, assim, então a linguagem é uma coisa que realmente precisamos alinhar isso, daí temos aqui a nível nacional do Brasil questões, e acho que tem questões para hoje também, que acho que essas coisas de redes sociais, o que a gente está vendo, então, né, os canais de comunicação, o YouTube, eu vejo que é fantástico, então, os brasileiros começaram a se inscrever nos canais da Urgent, né, começou a divulgar, a gente começou, né, com 40 inscritos no Urgent TV, estamos agora já indo para os 200, né, então, isso é fantástico. E daí, assim, depois a linguagem que isso seja pensado enquanto metodologia, né, que foi que você trouxe aí para a gente pensar, assim, na hora de divulgar, enquanto fomentador, facilitador do CSA, e que, efetivamente, aí, né, vire uma política mesmo dentro das nossas discussões, para que a gente realmente não esqueça isso e seja incluído como princípio e tudo mais, né. Acho que foi fantástico aqui, né, a Nathalie está chamando a gente daqui a pouco para voltar, temos mais 5 minutinhos, mas se você quiser falar alguma coisa também. A Anne está aqui com a gente, não sei se você nos ouve agora, se quiser falar também mais um pouquinho.
Olá, Ariel.
Agora sim, a gente te ouve.
Então, é sempre bom estar participando, né? Falando dos desafios, né, que a gente tem para se construir uma CSA, né? E os desafios estão aí, estamos aqui para dar as mãos, né? Todos dando as mãos para se construir mais e mais CSAs pelo Brasil e pelo mundo, que é isso que as pessoas, o planeta está precisando. Que nós todos possamos dar mão e se construir CSAs pelo Brasil afora e pelo mundo afora. E é isso, obrigado. Só tenho a agradecer nesse momento.
Obrigado, Anne. Gratidão pela sua contribuição de Manaus aqui, a gente atravessando o Brasil. E acho que é isso. Daqui a pouquinho a gente já deve voltar com todo mundo para cá. Nathalie, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I think we're done. We're ready.
Yeah, the others are coming in 3 minutes. We say we'll close the room at 20 past, so they will be back in 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Só tive a ideia rapidinho, falar rapidinho antes da gente entrar junto com o grupo total, porque eu não estou ainda em nenhuma CSA, né? Para quem não me conhece ainda, eu comecei agora nesse movimento e estou aprendendo. Mas uma ideia que eu tive para incluir pessoas, para criar acessibilidade, seriam sessões de gastronomia, de cozinhar, né? Juntos. Mesmo que, por exemplo, você não tenha cestas básicas para doar regularmente, talvez com atividades culturais como essa, porque gastronomia também é uma atividade cultural, envolvendo o alimento e incluindo as pessoas também, e até aumentando a participação e o envolvimento das pessoas, porque eu acho muito importante nesse tipo de movimento que as pessoas se envolvam e tenham uma ligação emocional com isso, porque cria mais engajamento. É só isso, uma sugestão.
Tá anotado aqui, obrigado. A Dia ela é fantástica para fazer isso, eu um pouco acompanhando o trabalho dela, e eu acho que até o pessoal lá em São Paulo, lá, o Bruno acompanha também a Disco Xepa, né, que o pessoal do Slow Food faz, eu acho que faz bastante coisa, mas ter algo assim voltado para a CSA, um dia específico, né, uma data comemorativa, é uma sugestão muito boa.
Obrigada.
Até você me agregou uma ideia agora nesse sentido, Ariel, que é talvez começar a pensar nisso como um novo princípio. Acessibilidade, talvez, ou soberania, ou alguma alimentar, talvez.
Oh, do you want to?
Everyone?
Yeah.
You can go ahead. Go.
As you want. So, Ariel, if you want to give a feedback on the discussion in your group, if you can, or somebody in your group.
Yeah, sure. I will do it in English. I think I took some notes. there were present people from Brasilia, São Paulo, and Manaus, and also from UK, a Brazilian from the UK. So it was a nice discussion. And we thought that we have some kind of experiences on really trying to get diversity, not just biodiversity or place, but also diversity of people that were getting the right to food, to feed. And in São Paulo, that there is people working with peripheral communities and urban occupations, working with communitarian kitchens and some kinds of space donations. But the feeling is that we need to plan ahead before putting effort on field to be really effective and reach more people. And in Brasilia, people in there are also working with donations to Buddhist temple, which prepares meals to people which live in the streets. And also they're changing some shares, CSA shares with psychological care to the farmers, and also like other kinds of therapies as well. And yes, and we need to be really, we really need to put it like in the language, a really nice language in the CSA Brazil website, and also maybe Eugene site to aware people that what we're doing is not just for us, but for other people who are like beside us and we don't see them. Gael, I can send you something written after.
Perfect. That would be wonderful. So shall I give a little feedback on our discussion? So let me go back to my pages. So yeah, South Africa, in the UK and Germany. So it was quite a nice crowd, a nice discussion. So we had a discussion on how to include disabled or older people in our projects. How could we provide some work experience and training on the farms? So that's a discussion we had. Also, how to pay them and how to be consistent with our projects. So there are different solutions that exist depending on the context in different countries. There would be the possibility to have social service paying the wage of the people for the first year, a couple of years. We also discussed the idea of having a deal with the social workers. We had the example of a project where 12 refugees had full membership in a project. So that's very interesting, working also with social workers. Then we discussed, Dee was talking about a project with patchwork farming. So I like the idea of patchwork, even though if we had access to land, we wouldn't need to do patchwork. But that's another discussion we won't start now. But also, how do we feed the people and how we work with small-scale farmers also. So Claire was also talking about the trust, building trust between the people who could afford the shares and some small-scale farmers or disadvantaged communities, and how their work as a CSA group or as a group activist could help build the trust between everybody, and how they could also make longer term contracts with small scale farmers, and how helpful it would be. Okay, we also talk about the restaurants working with farmers, how they could also have long-term contracts or being interested in specialties or heritage food, or in that case there was African food. And yeah, we had a discussion also how to include older people who cannot really work on the farm anymore. So we would be not only older people, but also if they have a disability or if they have a sickness, or in the case of quarantine. So there was a solution in Norway that was that some people volunteered to help pick up the vegetables or deliver them on a voluntary basis. But as the community was strong enough, people were feeling empowered to help out those who could not collect their own shares. Am I forgetting something? Dee, I think you took some notes too. Good, you're happy with my feedback? Good.
No, I don't take any notes because we're recording this. But
yes.
I think you covered everything, and what I'm getting is that, you know, we need to be doing some lobbying to ensure that, one, we can access funds, you know, be it from local authorities or, you know, charitable or philanthropist funds, to be able to do some of this work and to do it long term rather than project based. And we need to work with sort of local governments and other authorities as well in terms of supporting us in doing this work.
So what do you think about this conversation? How can we do some follow-up of how are we going to continue? So with Dee and other friends, we started the Bread Collective website. So we want to follow up on the conversation on the equity access to food. So it's just starting. So we have the website for the moment, but we want to feed into it. So that could be a place, but we also want to bring the conversation to the whole CSA network, because I think we still need to talk long and hard about this question. I think we could have a whole symposium only on the question of accessibility, but it's opening up. There are some ideas, and as I said before, and François said it too, the French are doing a huge work on this question of accessibility. They really dig deep into it, so we'll get some results that we'll be able to share and translate and give back to the network. So that would be an important thing we could do. I don't know how much time is left.
And I know we're also mapping and collecting different case studies. Urgency is collecting case studies of different models that, you know, we can share. But I see this as the beginning of a conversation, and for us to continue exchanging and supporting best practice and learning from each other.
So how much time do we have left? Natalie, are you here?
You have 1 minute.
Okay, so I give the floor to Claire. Claire, are you still around?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
you've asked for a poem. Okay. Plant your gardens now. Plant them in your heart soil. Plant them with abandon and purpose. Commit to them with all the passion that you can find in these heartbreaking times. Let the tendrils of passion fruit curl up your arms, and the root fingers of carrots and umhlonyane push between your toes. Let them caress you as lover. Surrender to them. Give yourself over to the soil. For that which you tend shall tend you in the times to come. Know your food. Know your medicine. Know it as kin and family, as lover and self. Make the cemetery that all that we leave, make the cemetery of all that we leave behind, a splendid orchard of all that we can imagine. cultivate imagination so that it is deep and wide and worthy of the future. This is as important as eating. For what we cannot imagine is beyond what we can create. Co-create. Cast yourself wide and deep and accept nothing short of decomposition. Learn the ways of forest and sea, grassland and flay, of birth and death, so that when you are called, you can decide together with the kelp and the moss what the future will look like, so that you may be invited into the council with the mycorrhiza and the algae. For it is not ours alone to decide, and nor can we abdicate. We must become competent, responsible, wise, fast, calling on the wisdom that has lain dormant in our DNA. We are part of a long line of people who survived, who used whatever advantage was at hand to ensure another and another generation. All of that is inside you. All of that resilience, all of those gifts, all of those complicities and culpabilities, all that forgiveness and all that vengeance. Tools and weapons locked down in code right in your body right now. You know how to plant the garden, but you also know how to piece back the forest, because you are the forest. You are the spider and falcon, the clear cut, the burnt, the slick, the pandemic, the antibody. Unlock the information that is being called forth. This is how you return. This is how you belong.
Thank you so much. That was the best way to finish the workshop. So thank you very much, everybody. And we'll write down a little report about the workshop, and we will give our details so you get it. So, Natalie, I think we're pretty much on time, aren't we?
Yeah, thanks, and great thanks to the interpreters for helping us out here in this session. Thank you very much for making this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Keep in touch.